The whiskey glass slid across the bar toward me, amber liquid catching the lamplight, and I hadn't ordered it yet. The glass left a wet trail on wood that looked freshly polished, despite the building's condemned appearance from the outside. I watched it come to rest exactly where my hand would naturally fall, and the precision of it made my skin crawl. The bartender's dead eyes met mine as he said, "You're late, Thomas. She's been waiting 3 nights now." His voice had the quality of something remembered rather than heard, like a song you can't quite place but know you've heard before. I'd never told him my name. I'd never been to Silver Hollow before this week, and the woman in the corner booth, the one staring at me with recognition burning in her gaze like coals that had never gone cold, had been dead for 16 years. I knew this with the same certainty I knew my own heartbeat, though I couldn't have told you how I knew, or why the sight of her made something in my chest constrict like a fist closing around my lungs. 3 days earlier, I rode into Silver Hollow with nothing but a worn saddle, a Colt revolver, and a letter that had found me in Carson City. The envelope bore no return address, just my name in handwriting I didn't recognize, and inside, a single sentence. "The Gilded Rose opens at midnight for those who remember." I didn't remember anything about Silver Hollow. I'd never heard of the Gilded Rose, but something in those words pulled at a memory I couldn't quite grasp, like trying to recall a dream upon waking. The town itself looked half abandoned in the October daylight. Buildings leaned like drunks against each other, their paint peeled back to gray wood beneath. Dust devils spun down Main Street, carrying whispers that might have been wind or might have been something else entirely. The few people I passed didn't meet my eyes, and I noticed something peculiar. Everyone I saw was moving away from the east end of town, where a faded sign hung crooked above a darkened doorway. I couldn't make out the words from that distance, but I knew, somehow, it was the Gilded Rose. I took a room at the boarding house, a cramped space that smelled of mothballs and old secrets. The landlady, Mrs. Kowalski, was a rail-thin woman with fingers like bird bones. When I mentioned the Gilded Rose, her hand froze on the register, the pen nib pressing hard enough to tear the paper. "That place don't open," she said, voice flat as the Nevada plains. "Not for the living anyway." She wouldn't say more, just handed me my key and disappeared into the back rooms, leaving me with the distinct impression I'd said something obscene. That first night, I lay awake listening to the town settle into silence. Silver Hollow went quiet in a way that felt wrong, like the hush before a scream. Around 11:30 I heard it. Footsteps on the boardwalk outside, regular as a heartbeat, all heading in the same direction. I went to the window and watched shadows move past, dozens of them, all walking east toward the Gilded Rose. Their faces, when lamplight caught them, were blank as fresh paper. No recognition, no awareness, just walking. I should have stayed in that room. Instead, I pulled on my boots and followed. The Gilded Rose stood at the end of a nameless alley, tucked between a shuttered assayer's office and what might have once been a general store. In daylight, the building had looked condemned, but now, at 11:58 by my pocket watch, warm light spilled from its windows. The sign above the door was freshly painted, gilt letters gleaming. The Gilded Rose, established 1858, all debts honored. Through the frosted glass, I could see movement, hear the low murmur of conversation, and the tinkling of a piano playing something slow and mournful. The door opened before I could touch it. A man stood there, tall and gaunt, dressed in a barkeeper's apron that was crisp and clean despite the late hour. His eyes were the color of tarnished silver, and when he smiled, I saw his teeth were too white, too perfect. "Thomas Holloway," he said, and my blood went cold. "We've been expecting you. You're late, but she said you'd come eventually. She's patient, our Catherine. The dead always are." I hadn't told anyone in Silver Hollow my full name. The boarding house register had just my first initial and surname. "How do you know me?" I managed. "You don't remember?" The barkeeper's smile widened. "No, I suppose you wouldn't. 16 years is a long time to carry guilt, Thomas. Long enough to bury it so deep you forget what you buried. Come in. Your usual table is waiting." I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to turn and ride out of Silver Hollow and never look back. But I stepped through that door, and the moment I crossed the threshold, the temperature dropped 20 degrees. My breath misted in the air, and the sounds from outside, the distant bark of a dog, the creak of windmill blades, all of it vanished. The Gilded Rose existed in its own pocket of silence, broken only by the piano and the low conversations of the dead, because they were dead. I knew it the moment I saw them clearly. The patrons sat at tables nursing drinks that never emptied, playing card games that never concluded, engaged in conversations that looped back on themselves like a snake eating its tail. Their clothes were from different eras: Confederate gray next to Union blue, Spanish finery beside prospectors' rags, and all of them shared that same quality of wrongness, like photographs that had been exposed too long and now showed things that hadn't been there when the shutter clicked. The barkeeper guided me to a booth in the back, and that's when I saw her. Catherine Mercier sat with her hands folded on the table, wearing a blue dress that had been fashionable in the late 50s. Her dark hair was pinned up, revealing the terrible bruising around her throat, purple-black even in death. She looked exactly as I remembered her from a memory I didn't know I had. "Hello, Thomas," she said, and her voice was soft as falling snow. "I've been waiting for you to remember." The whiskey appeared then, sliding across the bar with no visible hand pushing it, coming to rest perfectly in front of me. I looked at the amber liquid and saw my reflection distorted in its surface, my face older than I remembered, marked by years I couldn't quite account for. "I don't understand," I said, and my voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. Catherine reached across the table, and I flinched, but she only touched the whiskey glass, her finger leaving a cold impression in the condensation. "You ordered this the night we met. April 14th, 1858, right here in this booth. You bought me a drink too, sherry wine, and we talked about San Francisco. You were heading west to make your fortune. I was running from a marriage I'd never wanted." She paused, watching me with those dark eyes. "Do you remember what you promised me?" I shook my head, but even as I did, fragments surfaced. A spring night, stars visible through the Gilded Rose's windows. A woman's laugh, the weight of a promise made with the earnestness of youth and too much whiskey. "I promised to take you with me," I heard myself say, "to San Francisco, a new start. You promised to meet me at dawn, at the old mission outside town. You said we'd leave together." Catherine's voice remained gentle, but something cold crept into it. something that made the lamplight flicker. I waited, Thomas. I waited while the sun came up. I waited while my husband found me there. I waited while his hands closed around my throat because he knew. Somehow he knew I meant to leave him. I waited for you even as I died. The memory crashed into me then, full and terrible, like a dam breaking inside my skull. I remembered Catherine's smile, the way it lit up her whole face despite the shadow of fear she carried. I remembered the desperation in her eyes when she begged me to take her away from Silver Hollow, from the husband who drank and raged and hurt her in ways she wouldn't speak of, but I could read in the careful way she moved, the flinch when I'd reached for her hand too quickly. I remembered making that promise, meaning it in the moment with the certainty of a young man who'd never broken his word, who still believed his intentions were worth more than his actions. I'd felt like a hero that night, like I was saving someone, and I remembered the next morning, waking in a different saloon with a splitting headache and empty pockets, robbed blind by a card sharp I'd been too drunk to read. I remembered thinking about Catherine, about the promise I'd made, and the moment of choice stretched out before me in that hungover dawn. I remembered weighing her desperate hope against my empty pockets, against the long road to California, against the burden of another person's pain when I had nothing to offer. I remembered choosing not to go, choosing to ride out of Silver Hollow alone because I couldn't afford to take on someone else's troubles when I had nothing to offer. And wasn't that reasonable? Wasn't that just being practical? I remembered convincing myself of that as I saddled up. I remembered the relief I'd felt when the town disappeared behind me, and I remembered, God help me, how easily I'd let myself forget her entirely, like she'd never existed at all. I forgot. I whispered, and the words tasted like ash. God help me, I forgot about you entirely. Not entirely, Catherine said, and her voice carried the weight of 16 years waiting. Guilt has a way of lingering, even when memory fades, especially when memory fades. You felt it, didn't you? All these years, a weight you couldn't name, a shadow at the edge of every mirror, every still pool of water where you might glimpse your own reflection. You avoided Nevada like a man avoiding a grave. You never married, never let anyone get close enough to make promises to. You drank to quiet something you couldn't identify, chased oblivion in every bottle, because some part of you knew there was something you needed to forget about forgetting. The Gilded Rose remembers what you forgot, Thomas. We all do. Every slight, every broken promise, every moment of casual cruelty that seemed so small to the living, but meant everything to the dying. Everyone here has unfinished business, and you're part of mine. You're the reason I'm here instead of resting, the reason my husband's hands are the last thing I remember from life. The reason I've watched 16 years pass through these windows like a river I can't cross. Around us, the other patrons had gone still, watching our table with that patient attention the dead have in abundance. The piano music had stopped, leaving only the sound of my own ragged breathing. The barkeeper stood behind the bar, polishing a glass that was already clean, his tarnished silver eyes never leaving my face. "What do you want from me?" I asked, though I already feared the answer. Catherine smiled, and it was the saddest thing I'd ever seen. "The Gilded Rose honors all debts, Thomas. You owe me a life I never got to live." A chance you stole when you broke your promise. The saloon opens at midnight for people like you, people who carry debts to the dead. It opened for you 3 days ago, the moment you crossed into Nevada. It'll open every night until the debt is paid. I stood, my chair scraping loud in the silence. I can't give you your life back. It's been 16 years. I can't undo what happened. No, Catherine agreed, rising with me. But you can join me here. The Gilded Rose collects what's owed one way or another. You can sit down again, drink your whiskey, and when the sun rises, you'll walk out of here and forget again. For one day. Tomorrow night, you'll come back. Remember a little more, forget a little less. Eventually, the memories will be all you have and you won't be able to leave. Or, she paused, and her hand moved to her throat, touching the bruises that never faded. You can settle the debt tonight. Stay here with me, with all of us. The dead are lonely, Thomas, and we have so much time to fill. I looked around the saloon, really looked at it. The man in the Confederate uniform caught my eye and raised his glass in a silent toast. His eyes were hollow. The woman in the Spanish dress laughed at something her companion said, but the laugh had no joy in it, just the mechanical repetition of a sound she'd made in life. They were all trapped here, I realized, caught in the moment of their deaths or the debts they had left unpaid, playing out scenes that had no ending. There has to be another way, I said. The barkeeper spoke then, his voice like wind through a graveyard. The Gilded Rose has stood in Silver Hollow since 1858, Mr. Holloway. We've seen gold rushes and ghost towns, wars and pestilence, and we remain because debts must be honored. Every person here owed something to someone who died. Every one of them tried to find another way. This is the only way. The saloon decides. I turned back to Catherine, searching her face for some sign of the woman I'd met that spring night, the woman who'd laughed at my jokes and dreamed of San Francisco. You really want me to stay here, trapped forever? I want you to understand what you took from me, she said, and for the first time anger flickered in her eyes. I want you to feel 16 years of waiting. I want you to know what it's like to have your life stolen by someone's carelessness. But more than that, Thomas, I want you to remember, because if you walk out of here tonight and forget again, you'll become like them. She gestured to the other patrons, hollowed out, just going through motions. At least if you stay consciously. If you remember, you'll still be you. Trapped, yes, but aware. Isn't that better than becoming a ghost who doesn't even know he's dead? The choice she offered was no choice at all, and we both knew it. Stay and be damned, or leave and be damned more slowly. The Gilded Rose had me either way. I looked at the whiskey glass, still sitting on the table where I'd left it, my reflection staring back at me with accusations in its eyes. How many nights? I asked quietly. If I leave tonight, how many nights before I can't leave anymore? The barkeeper answered, the saloon opened for you 3 nights ago, and you came tonight. Most last a month, maybe 2, before the forgetting stops working. You'll know when it's your last night. The door won't open outward anymore. I sat back down, my legs suddenly weak. Catherine sat across from me, watching with these patient dead eyes. Tell me about San Francisco, I said, grasping for anything to delay the inevitable decision. Tell me what you would have done if I'd kept my promise. For an hour, maybe more, she talked. She painted pictures of a life unlived, A woman I'd never known describing dreams that had died in a mission yard at dawn. She would have opened a dress shop. She would have lived near the ocean. She would have learned to paint. She spoke of small happenings and grand ambitions with equal weight. And I listened, and I remembered the young man who had made a promise and broken it without a second thought. When she finished, the silence that fell was heavier than before. Outside, I could hear the first sounds of dawn approaching, a rooster crowing somewhere in Silver Hollow's dying streets. The lamplights in the Gilded Rose began to dim, and the patrons started to fade, their forms growing translucent as the night released its hold. "I have to decide now, don't I?" I asked. Catherine nodded. "The saloon closes at dawn. If you're still here when the last lamp goes out, you'll stay. If you leave, you'll forget. And tomorrow night, you'll come back and we'll have this conversation again, with small variations, until you can't leave anymore." I stood, and this time Catherine didn't rise with me. She sat in that booth, her hands folded on the table, looking exactly as she had when I'd first seen her tonight. I walked to the door, my hand on the brass handle, and I turned back one last time. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it with everything I had left. "I'm so damned sorry, Catherine." "I know," she said, "but sorry doesn't pay the debt. Nothing does except time. I'll see you tomorrow night, Thomas. We can have the same conversation, or you can sit with me and tell me about the 16 years I missed. Either way, you'll come back. The Gilded Rose always collects." I pushed through the door into the pre-dawn gray. The cold hit me like a physical blow, and I stumbled down the alley toward the boarding house. Behind me, I heard the door close, heard the locks engage, heard the building settle back into condemned silence. By the time I reached my room, my head was already fuzzing, the sharp edges of memory growing soft and indistinct. I left Silver Hollow that morning, rode hard for the territorial line, told myself I was free. The sun was bright, the air was clear, and for 3 hours I believed I'd escaped. But that night, in a way station 30 miles north, I dreamed of a woman in a blue dress, and in the dream she was waiting at a mission while the sun rose and a man's shadow fell across her. I woke with her name on my lips and found myself saddling my horse before I was fully conscious of what I was doing. The horse knew where to go, or maybe the road knew, or maybe Silver Hollow had me on a line I couldn't see, reeling me back in like a fish that thought it had escaped the hook. I fought it for 3 hours before I gave in and let the horse take me where it wanted to go. I told myself I was choosing to return, that I wanted answers, that I needed to understand. But the truth was simpler and more terrible. I couldn't stay away. The Gilded Rose had already sunk its teeth into me, and every mile I'd ridden north had felt like swimming against a current that only grew stronger. I walked into the Gilded Rose at midnight, and the barkeeper smiled like he'd never doubted I'd return. "Welcome back, Thomas," he said. "Your whiskey's waiting." Catherine sat in our booth, and when she saw me, something like relief crossed her face. "You came back faster tonight," she said. "That's good. It means you're remembering more. Sit down. Tell me about the years I missed. We have all the time in the world now." I sat and I told her, and somewhere around 3 in the morning, I realized I was describing my life to a dead woman and couldn't remember why I'd thought leaving was possible. The whiskey never emptied. The lamplights never truly brightened, And when dawn came again, I stood to leave, but my hand hesitated on the door a little longer than before. Outside, the sun was rising over Silver Hollow, but I couldn't shake the feeling I was walking toward darkness. The barkeeper was already polishing glasses for tomorrow night.